ice cream.
So, hello, welcome to the very first edition of a podcast by Altrincham Community Media, which we're calling the Theatre of Dreams podcast, because it's a podcast about Manchester United by a number of us who are United fans and one or two who are not, about the club, about the both on and off the pitch. And for this first episode, I'm joined by Tom Jolley, who does a show on Radio Alti called what is your show?
Sport.
Soundtrack to Sport. There you go. He's a United supporter. I'm Rod Maxwell. I'm a bit older. I'm a United supporter as well, and I guess in some ways this is an opportunity, Tom, to get stuff off our chest because there's been
More than just get stuff off our chest with United these days, isn't it?
It's amazing, isn't it? So just talk about you and United first of all. What's the first team that you can remember? What's the first Manchester United memory?
First team. Well, the first team I saw live was the 2016 team when we had Zlatan up front. The first game I went to was against Saint Etienne in the Europa League, and we won 3-0. The first team I remember would be probably Sir Alex Ferguson's last season. I didn't get to see much of all of the glory days, as you could say, but that's the last one I remember. Not vividly, but bits.
So was his last season 2012, 2013?
Yeah, 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
That was the last time we won the league in his last year. So
Yeah, Van Persie's amazing season.
Yeah.
Well, I slightly go a bit older than you because I was born in 1970 and I wasn't really into football massively, but I remember growing up in an estate in Northern Ireland and I was the only Manchester United fan. Everybody else was Liverpool fans, and it was horrendous actually, because apart from the odd FA Cup, we weren't that good, and I didn't watch football, didn't play football, and then I got back into football in United late 80s, early 90s, and then of course it happened to be the good period. But I used to go watch Oldham. I used to come
Athletic.
Oldham Athletic, and I saw them both in what would be League Division One and then in the Premier League, and plastic pitch and everything because you couldn't get a ticket.
And now they're down in National League, aren't they? So
they're down in the National League. Yeah, it's quite an amazing change for them, but amazing time for United on and off the pitch. Really, it's what 10 years since we won the Premier League.
Yeah, I get reminded by it by all my friends that are City fans of how it's been 10 years since we finished above them in the league.
But the thing for me though is that it would make an absolute unbelievable sort of course in how to be useless at succession planning as a business. You know what I mean?
Well, from a business point of view, they're technically successful, aren't they, with the amount of money they make? That's the way they're looking at it. Well, we say we're talking about the Glazers there, and they're not just them as a hierarchy staff. We're talking about all their directors and stuff. They aren't massively interested in football. They're all interested in the money they can make. And that's the reason we're seeing with the sale at the minute, where they want 6 billion because they want $1 billion each for each family member, which from a business point of view, if they can get that, is amazing for them as people. But from a footballing side, it's not very good.
But see, this is the thing, isn't it? These days, and we've just done the same. When you start talking about United, you almost talk about the business and the sale.
Well, it's become a business, not a football club these days, hasn't it? With the ownership, it's become we need to make this much money in revenue. This is why we need top four. We don't need top four because we want Champions League for the fans. We need it for the revenue that's going to come in. And I'd understand it from a different club's point of view of, say, staying in the Premier League because that money keeps the club afloat. But with us, we're arguably, I'd say the second, if not the biggest club in the world. We can't be moving around with all the revenue as a, like, what would you call it? Like a motive to get in top four. You need to get it not just for the fans. Yes, the money's important, but the fans need it as well, and the players need to be playing that for the career.
But if let's just pick up on the Glazers, because the summary that I have in my head, and I might be wrong, but they bought the club for something in and around 700 million quid, right?
It was 700 million, but it was on a bank loan, wasn't it? That's the problem.
But that's the problem. So the club, though, was worth 700 million when they took it over.
Now it's worth upwards of 6.5 bill.
So I think that they, and at the moment, we've got two teams bidding for it, two different groups, and it looks like essentially, I think the Glazers have put a 6 billion evaluation on the club. That's what they want.
Yeah.
And Ratcliffe's bid is not 100% of the club. It leaves Joel and Avram with a percentage of it, but his percentage share values the club at roughly 6 billion.
The way he's going to buy the club, he's not worth the amount of money he has. He can't buy United with it. So he's going to buy United over like a 10-year period of installments. Whereas we're seeing with Sheikh Jassim coming in from Qatar, he's going to give them all the money straight away, which is what they want. He's going to give them, he's going to give the fans what they want, and he's got a plan in place for when he buys the club.
Yeah, but you actually think Avram and Joel still want to stay in for a while. So
I can see why they would, because in their eyes, the club's price is only going to go up, isn't it?
Well, exactly this. But it also, sometimes I think maybe they're more emotionally attached to it than we give them credit for. But perhaps it's actually.
Yeah, I guess you could. Yeah,
perhaps
we do forget their people, don't we? Don't we? They're just the criminals at the top, but.
But what's interesting is that essentially, I think they want to walk away with being able to say they took a 600-700 million pound asset and they've now got it valued at 6 billion or thereabouts. Yeah. And either they want that from an ego point of view, or they want it because they want to be able to do something else beyond United.
Well, they obviously own the NFL club, don't they? They own is it the Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, so they own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So obviously they're not up for sale right now. So it's clear that United's the driving point of we can get the most money for this, because the Tampa Bay one successfully as a business isn't doing as well. I guess you could say that.
But the issue we've now got is that the process doesn't have an end point. There's no end date to it.
Well, we keep getting given these, like, this Friday is the end point, and it never happens, does it? It's happened for the last like 6 weeks or so.
It doesn't happen because they're waiting for the Qatari bid to increase their offer, because I think
they know they can drive the price up because of the amount of money they have.
And the Qatari bid values it at 100%, values it somewhere between 5 to 6 billion, but not at 6 billion pounds.
I think, excuse me, I think the bid that Sheikh Jassim has put in, per the tweets I'm seeing from journalists from all over the world, is that it's around 5.6. That's the bid he's put in. But
I know the last bid.
No, that's the one before that. We haven't heard about this 11th hour bid that he put in last week. That's supposedly going to be this bid that blows Radcliffe's bid out the water, essentially. But no one's really hearing anything about it.
It's a bit like buying a house, though, and getting gazumped, isn't it? It's essentially the same process here. There's no end date, and the big issue for me with being no end date is that the impact on our preseason
and the transfer window. We don't have both respective parties that are trying to buy us have different plans in the transfer window. Like we've seen people saying Radcliffe wants these 3 players, Qatari wants these 3 players, and you can compare the 3 players that they want, and there's massive differences as to where they want the club to go. Radcliffe signings, I think Radcliffe's ownership in general will see us finish top 4. Qatari's money in general will just see us compete with City and Newcastle, just because we have the firepower to buy who we want. And it's not just buying who we want; it's the facilities, it's the stadium, because that's a big issue in itself.
Yeah, I have to say I am completely conflicted on the whole point about our future ownership, because
who would you want? I know who I will want.
You want the guitar?
Yeah, of course, because I don't want Joel and Avram to stay. I think they're just, as much as they could be lovely people or whatever, they're just a disease to the club, I think. And I think the Qatari money is the Radcliffe's money. It's not going to be a sustainable amount from what he's worth and what Ineos is worth that can help us fight for titles, because that's the way it's going.
Well, I agree with you on that, and I think if I was in Radcliffe's team right at the moment, I would be saying any bid that includes Joel and Avram as still being on the board won't look good to the fans.
No. And
And
I think he
look,
knows that though. You would think he already knows that because he was
well,
supposed to be the people's bidder in the first place, wasn't he?
he was, but it's interesting that he's keeping them in there, and he doesn't need them for succession planning.
No.
He doesn't need them for that, but there's something in it, right? But at the same time, my issue with the Qatari bid is that United fans, and I probably wouldn't exclude myself from this, we've been quite vocal about other clubs being bought by
Yeah.
states, and the fact is though, any owner we get is not going to be perfect because
No.
ultimately. Years ago, when the club was taken off the stock exchange, we all handed over our shares, and we
It's
lost.
back on it now, isn't it? So
Yeah, but it's only a certain class of share,
yeah.
and I don't really.
The last time I looked at it, it's about £18 a share. And that is compared to what it was 3 years ago, it is just
Yeah,
it's just
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. But I have to say I don't. These are Class B shares or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Class A. I can't. I don't really understand it if I'm honest with you, Tom. But it's in the New York Stock Exchange. I don't even know why they did that. Maybe it was just to raise some cash. I have no idea.
I
Um,
don't know. I would
but
say that sorry, I was gonna say Radcliffe's thing is that I feel like whatever he does, he's always good. I think but he owns Nice, doesn't he, in Ligue 1? And you can see that the fans aren't happy with his ownership there. So surely, if although Joel and Avram Glazer don't have the fans in mind fully, you would think that although they're going to stay, someone in their team will go, well, we've seen his project at Nice, and he could, although we can get it for this much money, if they care about the club and how much they want to ego boost themselves for how much they bought it, Radcliffe's bid could not just it could drive the price up, but it could also go put the price down for the teams because if his ownership affects the team's performance in the market and stuff like that, our team performances are only going to go down with the rest of the Premier League teams being better.
you see, this is the thing that frustrates me is that at the moment the Glazers are not giving any attention to the fact that this process should be set a date because
Yeah,
you need it for the continuity of the team, etc. They don't care about that. In my view, it doesn't come across like they care at all because all they care about is the biggest sum of money, and it would be horrendous if this continues to be a story over the summer. Distracts from our transfer business, what
yeah.
we should be doing on the field. And actually, I mean, for me right now, we have a big issue, which is called the FA Cup final. Because
Yeah,
if
I am
we
not confident at all. By the way, I'm not confident at all.
no, and actually, if our season stopped right now with top four and one cup in the bag, we used to call it the Fizzy Cup, whatever. But it still is a cup. That would be a good
Can I
season.
just ask you a question? Just going a little bit off topic. If we get top four of the Carabao Cup, and if even if no matter what the result of the FA Cup final is, if we had a better season than Arsenal,
Well, where could they? They'll be
they'll be
second.
second, no trophies, just second, and I think the max amount of points they can get is 90 or 80
Have
something.
we had a better season? Um, I,
I think we've got a good argument to say we have.
well, the way I look at the season is number one, our football has improved greatly,
Yeah,
right? And we've got a manager who has got a vision and a manager who actually brings authority, and can connect with the players really
and he
well.
can connect with the youth players as well.
And he's consistent with the good things about our football, if you like, ideology, if you like, the
Yeah,
way we want to play football. So the first thing is we're playing much better football. We've got a manager who is as an authoritative figure. He's a bit cool as well, but he knows he's got a brand of football that he's trying
yeah,
to portray. And he's made some big calls this season, or the club have with him, and they've come off okay. We've managed the whole situation with Ronaldo, so that's the first thing. Playing nicer football, it's more attractive on the eye at Old Trafford when you go there. The
yeah,
atmosphere in the club is a bit better. Second thing is, yes, we have won a cup, and it might be the third ranking cup in the
yeah.
season, but it's still a cup, and it gets us used to that type of thing. And top four has always been a priority, and it's looking possible.
We've got 3 games left, haven't we? And we need to win what? We need 6 points from 3. Is that?
Oh, is it 6 points for 3?
Because obviously, because I'm just thinking, because
If-
in my eyes, Newcastle have already got it. They need 1 win from 3.
Yeah.
I think Liverpool will win every game they've got left.
Yeah.
I just think they will. So we need to win 2 of our games. We can lose 1, and then we get top 4 because we get it by a point.
Yeah. So I mean, top 4 is a must.
Yeah.
And I think what's slightly bugged me recently is that either the team's just knackered now, right?
Well, it is. We've played what 50 between 50 and 60 games already this season,
and
we've still got what four games left. I'm right.
Yeah. So the FA Cup final, 3 leagues.
Yeah,
and
that's all in this week, by the way. Them 3 league games, because it's as we're recording this, we play Bournemouth today. Don't we? We've got Chelsea on Thursday, and then we've got who is it? Fulham on the last day on the Sunday.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And then we've got literally what dates it's on Saturday, isn't it?
It's a Saturday. I'm actually going.
Oh, yeah, it's the 4th of June, isn't it? So that's 6 days after the Fulham game.
It's on that Saturday, and there's a train strike as well.
I know that's disappointing. I was looking to go, but the price of the tickets and everything, and
yeah, it's not a cheap day out, I'll tell you. And with the hotel in London as well. But my son and I are going, and I have to say, me was like, I really need to go to this because it could be horrendous. It could be literally horrendous.
It's that chance of it being amazing that you want to see, isn't it? So I think there'll be more pressure on the game on the fact that we can stop City winning the treble. Because
that's the problem.
They'll have won the league by then. They're more realistically, who's going to Inter Milan aren't going to stop them in the Champions League final, are they? They're just not. So and we've proven that in times where City are on top, whether it was when they won the league in, was it 2017, 18, between 17 and 19, where we beat them 3-2 at Etihad, and they could have won the league with 7 games to spare or something. We've proved it this season. Everyone expects them to come to Old Trafford and batter us. We won 2-1. So there's been times, even under Ole, where we beat them with what would have been a team where we've had Andres Pereira, Scott McTominay, and Fred as a midfield 3. So sometimes you wouldn't expect it, but I wouldn't count us out. But I'm not at all confident.
No, I'll be honest with you, Tom. I don't think I have less look forward to a game in all my life, and I'm actually glad that the trains are off, because the idea of going back on that train to Manchester, potentially having lost the game embarrassingly.
And it's not the problem with that is you're gonna have City fans on that train as well, loving life, because you're going back to the same place.
It's a disaster, actually. I mean, it's actually probably better.
It's better in a sense that they've cancelled them, because it would just be horrible, wouldn't it?
But the thing is, I mean, we should maybe talk about rivalry in a moment. But I have to say, I like how City play football, right? And I like Pep Guardiola as a manager and a person. And I don't have a hatred. I don't like a hatred as a terrible word. I don't have this really deep dislike for City as a football club in the same way I actually have for Liverpool, because of my childhood growing up being surrounded.
I'm the same, but I think it's only since the money came in at City, isn't it? But then again, that in 10 years' time, if we start having success with the Qatari ownership, that's going to be the same for us. So you could people will be saying that to say anyone. Say I could be saying to a City fan saying they've got more money than us now, and this, that, and the other. So
you see, this is the thing that comes constantly for me comes back is if you're telling the story of United over the last 10 years, right? It's for me a bit the equivalent of Apple, right? When Steve Jobs died, right? Suddenly going vroom, okay, and being the top of their league, the top of their game. And this is the thing that I always think is a corporate failure.
Yeah,
maybe it's a sports.
I think the fact we didn't have, people don't forget that we didn't have a sporting director for 7 years. That was a big problem, because we've spent a lot of money, and we can't deny that. I don't like when United fans say we haven't spent a lot of money because we
We
have.
have. We
We
have.
have. It's the way we haven't. It's the way we spent it. I will say about this. Sorry, Rod. I will say about the City ownership is that although they've got a lot of money, they spend really well, don't they?
But the thing that gets me is that the biggest decision, the biggest footballing decision that our current owners, the Glazers, and the senior executive team in Old Trafford had to make was to get the successor to Ferguson right.
Yeah.
And that was
Could you say they got it right, but just didn't give him enough time?
no, I think he fundamentally was the wrong
Yeah.
person. And the thing about it is that when you're coming to a club like United, it's really hard for you. You have to be a certain character as well as your football. And I think any manager who was at a lower league, a lower team, a smaller team potentially in the same division was always going to have a challenge, right? Because the press were going to be on them saying, "Can you step up?"
Yeah.
And I think both the club and David Moyes made some fundamental mistakes in how they presented him as a manager.
Yeah.
And he threw away a lot of players early doors, and this thing came out he was going to bring in certain Everton players, etc. All of that was really badly stage managed. Had we gone for somebody possibly from another league, like a Ten Hag at the time, who was top of their league, who'd won leagues.
Well, thinking about it now, who was out there at that time?
Well, there's probably very few.
It was 2014, so 2013-14 season. So Pep would have been where? Barcelona still? Or
Yeah,
maybe I can't think of all at the top of my head, but there's not a lot out there that you could have got. And David Moyes was doing well at Everton at the time, and he got them in Europe. So you can argue that yes, he didn't work out. I think he's a really good manager. He just wasn't the fit for United that we needed.
And this is the point is that in any job, when you're a senior person, right? Just go back to running Apple, for example. Yes, you have to be good at the content, i.e., the core of your job, football culture, but you have to have a personality and a character that actually can take the pressure of the job and also diffuse things and deflect things. Moyes just took it all on himself, and it became like a personal battle. But clearly he's done a good job in the teams he's gone to.
Yeah, they've just reached the final of the Conference League. They reached the semi-final of the Europa League last year. It was the semi-final of the Europa League. So
and he went out and got that European experience in Holland. And proves himself. He's a good football coach, just not capable of being the manager of United. But now, I mean, thankfully now in Ten Hag. I see. This is the other thing. I look at Pep Guardiola. I think fantastic manager. I look at Klopp. I like Klopp. I don't like Liverpool as a football club per se.
He's probably the best thing that's ever happened to that club.
Oh,
one or two things, I'd say.
But you see, the thing about it is he has a character and a personality.
Yeah,
is bigger than the players in a way. And when you're dealing with players who are coming in earning millions, you need somebody to be able to do that.
I dread to think what Liverpool fans would think when Jurgen Klopp leaves the club. I think it's just gonna crumble. Like if they don't get the right man after him, it's not gonna go well for them.
Do you know? I've had this theory. That he's leaving at the end of the season. I think he might have just signed a new contract, but that there's something in me that, and I know this is not supposed to be a Liverpool podcast, but what's interesting is their season has not gone particularly well. I mean, they might make top four, but it's been a season of sort of fits and starts, if you like.
But people forget they got 99 points. Was it 99 points last year?
Yeah,
and 98 points. So and they were on for every trophy possible. That's some season, and then they missed out.
Boom.
What that mentally takes out of a team will be ridiculous. And I remember saying to someone, I can't remember, it might have been on Peter's show, it might have been on my show. I said, Arsenal not winning the league this season, I'm going off a bit above track. It might be one of the best things to ever happen to that team mentally, because they know they're never going to want to be in that position again. They've missed out, and then now they can push on.
I mean, that's the thing. I think that's the thing about the Premier League is it is like a marathon, right? And
Yeah.
I have never run a marathon, but you hear what people talk
I
about.
think nowadays it's a lot longer as well because we used to see when United, say in the early 90s, we could sort of mess around until Christmas, start playing properly, and then win it 75 to 85 points. Now you've got to be on it from game one, 95 points minimum. City have set that mark, haven't they? So
Yeah, and this season you've had the whole disruption of with the World Cup at Christmas.
yeah,
And you I mean, it's never happened before, but therefore there is no benchmark or comparison to that. But
yeah.
getting your players back,
Now
back
that
to
that's
the,
that's not affected. I think that's affected the big teams more than the small ones
of
because,
course, it will.
for example, the Sandro Martinez, he didn't come back to the United team till what was it, mid-February, I want to say. Which fair enough, he's just won the World Cup. Like I'd do the same, but it's affected Brighton with McAllister. You've got just off the top of my head, I'm thinking the French players in the Liverpool team with Canate. I'm thinking Varane for us. There was a lot of players there that if you didn't get knocked out early, you're missing players for them first 2-3 games back.
Well, look, let's start the first episode with some predictions, okay?
Yeah,
So where do you think we're going to be by the end of the season
this
and,
season.
and this season and let's talk about the FA Cup and yeah, let's just be moderate and we'll go there and
Can
we'll
we
go a
start?
couple of weeks. Go ahead, go.
Right. So I think we'll get top four. I think out of the last 3 games, I think we'll beat Bournemouth today. But I think it'll be a really tight game because we always seem to struggle against Bournemouth for some reason. I don't know why. We just do.
We don't like the
Chelsea,
seaside.
yeah, Chelsea midweek. I think that's going to be a tougher game than people realise because Chelsea are one of these teams that they just show up every now and again. I think we'll win, and I think Fulham on the last day. I genuinely don't see us losing all 3 games, but I think that's very dependent on if Marcus Rashford's fit because he's in the squad for today's game, but he's been said to be ill. So
Yeah, but I think this undisclosed illness. I think there's a
yeah,
little bit of games there. Actually, I think he will play. I think he'll be okay. I think
yeah.
Ten Hag is just trying to keep people.
I think Ten Hag will be saying to him, mate, you've got 4 games left. Come on.
Well, it's like get out of your sick bed. Yeah,
Yeah.
see
But,
it.
but 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 to my predictions, I think we'll get top four, and I think we will lose the FA Cup final in extra time.
Okay, extra time.
I think we'll lose in extra time.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to be one of them where their squad depth in extra time will just do us. Just because you look at their bench, they'll probably keep De Bruyne on the bench because they've got the Champions League final the week after.
That's the thing. I mean, the one thing that is to our advantage is the fact that it isn't their last game of the season. They've got the Champions League. They're going to win the Champions League, I think. I think they'll beat Inter.
But can I just say, quick, I know it's going off topic again, but do you think that if teams like Real Madrid and Barcelona don't step up their game, United don't step up theirs, PSG probably will go down because Messi's going to leave, Mbappe might leave. Do you not think City could just go on this run of just Champions League, Premier League? They could, couldn't they? It's horrible to think. It really is horrible. Because I was having this chat with my mate who's a City fan the other day, and I said, if people don't step up their game next season, I don't see anyone beating City.
And in some ways, I can see them only getting better. I mean, if I look at
it depends how long Pep stays there for.
It does,
but even if Pep leaves, I think you've got managers there that already, like De Zerbi, for example, at Brighton. He will easily be the candidate if he stays at Brighton long enough to be that City manager next. Vincent Kompany at Burnley. They'll have a manager coming through that he might not be as dominant as Pep in the league, but yeah. Anyway, enough talking about City.
No. But I mean, I think we'll make top four. I think we will get it over the line. I would take extra time in the FA Cup because if we got to extra time, it means at least we're battling. And then you never know. I don't think we'll win the FA Cup personally, but it also depends on injuries and the likes of that. So yeah, I'm not traveling back that night, but that's not because I want to go out and celebrate. But yeah,
I was going to say with just going back to the prediction for the FA Cup, do you think City's 3 league games before that will have an effect? Because although they are say, hypothetically, let's say they lose to Chelsea tomorrow, they go and draw at Newcastle, the pressure's on for that final game because they've already think, right, we've got Champions League in the bag, let's slow down a bit. Do you think that will affect them mentally going into the FA Cup thinking,
No.
or we're already in the Champions League final, or this is an FA Cup, this is just this. We've done it before.
No, because it means too much. And
Yeah.
and actually they're too professional. So it's an added incentive. I mean they want Champions League probably more than anything because they've not won it.
That I think that's the reason. That's one of the main reasons they've got heart. Anyway, we need to stop talking about Safe. This is United podcast.
It is, but yeah, it is indeed. But look, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing this. We've got to talk about. There's things like the stadium. What's your hopes and expectations for that? It needs money spent on it, But would you want a new stadium? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about who we want in the summer. Where's our priorities? What we need to buy. I have no. You guys will have a better idea of who we should be buying. I have no idea. I'll be honest with you. But we could talk about where we need to strengthen, and we'll also do some predictions for next season as well. So, we are calling it is it the Theatre of Dreams podcast? Is it?
Yeah, Theatre of Dreams podcast.
All right, and stay with us over the next number of weeks as we do this. We get ready for pre-season. We're in a bit of pre-season training ourselves here, Tom.
Yeah.
Right, good. Right. Well, look, thanks for listening. It's Altrincham Community Media, Rod Maxwell, Tom Jolley with the Theatre of Dreams podcast. Speak to you soon.